welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new here, welcome. I started this channel primarily as a way to track the changes to my body as I transition from female to male, and to talk about what it's like to be trans. But today I'm going to focus on a different topic than usual. Today I'm going to talk about what it's like to have autism and seek and keep gainful employment in American society. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what autism is and how it affects me. And then I'm going to talk about some potential solutions to problems presented by my neurodiversity and what it would be like in an ideal world. I hope you stick with me through all of this, and hopefully we can learn something together. So, Harvard Medical School's health blog describes neurodiversity as the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. There's no one right way of thinking, learning, or behaving, and differences are not viewed as deficits. That is from an article written by Nicole Baumer, and I find that it really summed up my experience pretty well. And I strongly suggest you check it out. There's a link in the description to that article. It's important to note that the word neurodiversity really refers to how all people are different, but it's often used in the context of autism spectrum disorder, also known as ASD, as well as other neurological or developmental conditions like ADHD or certain learning disabilities. There are some people who lump personality disorders in with neurodiversity, and I don't know if I support the validity of that, but more power to them. When it comes to neurodiversity, we have neurodiverse people, that's people with autism or ADHD or learning disability of some kind, and then we have autistic people. Those are people who do not have neurodevelopmental differences, who behave in what's considered the normal way by society. An autistic person's occasional lateness is not the same as the executive dysfunction an autistic person experiences. Saying, oh, well, that happens to everyone, just doesn't apply to an autistic person, and it diminishes the significant difference in the degree of dysfunction that we experience. Neurodiverse individuals have invisible disabilities that affect executive functions to a much greater extent than autistic individuals. I have what we in the community affectionately refer to as ADHD, which is a combination of ADHD and autism. But today we're going to focus on autistic neurodiversity. We could do a whole video about ADHD, but this is about the challenges of finding meaningful work as an autistic person. Common autistic traits include varying degrees of difficulty with social interaction, which can go from non-speaking all the way up to just misunderstanding social cues, intrusive thoughts and impulsivity, and stimming, which is physical tics designed to release energy, like rocking, flapping your hands, things like that. This is a simplification, but it covers key areas. Diagnosis can vary greatly from brief psychiatric evaluation, like 15 minutes across the desk from a psychologist or psychiatrist, to extensive neurodevelopmental testing involving computers and paperwork and sheets and ugh. I was diagnosed at 11, but the paperwork for my diagnosis is long gone. It is very lost. So adult re-diagnosis is needed so that I have access to that documentation. Importantly, within the autistic community, self-diagnosis is considered valid. So you don't need to be diagnosed by a doctor in order to still be accepted as an autistic person in our community. This is because of the cost and accessibility barriers to formal diagnosis. It is very expensive to get diagnosed. You have to have multiple doctor's appointments, referrals to specialists. You have to pay for those specialists. Then you have to pay for the testing itself, which can range anywhere from $200 to thousands of dollars, depending on the type of testing you undergo. So if you've ever wondered if you're autistic, you probably are somewhere on the autism spectrum. It is a spectrum from non-functioning over to functioning, but a lot of people don't want to view that spectrum in that light because it places non-functioning people at a lower level than functioning people in terms of value. And we don't want to devalue anyone just because they happen to be less functional than other people. We want to include everyone that we can, and make them feel, included. So, how does being autistic affect getting and holding a job? The short answer is it affects getting and holding a job in every possible way. The typical job search involves haunting job boards, applying for jobs, and tracking everything. For autistic individuals, executive function problems, executive dysfunction, makes organization incredibly difficult. My mind wanders, I repeat entries, and finding where to even input information can be a significant hurdle. Without my spreadsheet, which I'll link in the description below, I would be completely lost. Lack of energy due to sensory processing disorders also severely impacts job searching. Noises, social interaction, masking for long periods of time, all of that drains me. And applying requires remembering numerous steps, different logins, and re entering resume data even after you've entered the resume as an upload. So, executive function issues plus low energy create a miserable experience instead of a new job. Interviewing is a nightmare for autistic individuals. We're expected to have skillful, on the fly social conversations with someone holding our future in the palms of their hands. That is so nerve wracking. And it's nerve wracking for autistic people, but it's even worse for us with executive dysfunction problems. Selling yourself requires indirect answers and navigating complex social cues that we often miss. Even autistic people struggle, but for us, it is amplified. Interviewers expect neurotypical social give and take, that social dance that doesn't come naturally to autistic people. And autistic individuals tend to answer questions very directly and honestly, which can be misinterpreted as rudeness due to a lack of expected tone or body language. We can't portray how we feel as naturally as autistic people can. It just doesn't come naturally to us. Masking is essential for an interview process. You have to, for those of you who don't know, masking is where you hide the symptoms of your autism for an extended period of time so that you can interact with someone normally in part of that social dance, that give and take. But it is exhausting and it takes a lot of effort, and it wears us out. It's very difficult to do. So masking is essential but often elusive. And why do interviewers ask one question but expect a different implied answer? Like, if you ask about my greatest strength, then why isn't it acceptable for me to answer honestly? I have to do some kind of roundabout answer where I talk about it. Is stupid. I'm not going into it. I'm done. It's frustrating. I'm done. This indirect communication is absolutely baffling for those of us on the spectrum. Then, assuming you get the job, navigating workplace communication with diverse styles is challenging. It's hard for autistic people, but it's even harder, again, for us autistic folks. The potential for misinterpretation is really high, especially with our difficulties regarding reading and displaying expected body language. Treating a boss as an equal instead of being obsequious can be seen as being offensive by some, and direct requests can be seen as rude. So all the ways that we communicate are considered to be thoughtless or rude, or I don't even know the words to describe it, but autistic people get really upset when we're direct about something, and I don't understand why. Honest limitations on projects can be met with offense. The result is often that autistic people get labeled as the trouble child or a difficult employee, and we get moved between departments and eventually fired for perceived bad attitude, which is often just a lack of expected social cues. Workplaces are sensory nightmares. There are bright lights, cold temperature, constant phone ringing. My sensory integration disorder, which is part of my autism spectrum disorder, means that my brain mishandles all of this input and causes literal pain and a feeling of overwhelm. So what seems to be totally normal to an autistic person, the workplace environment of phones ringing and white noise machines and all of that, that's all normal to an autistic person. But to me, it causes actual literal pain. My brain rings. I can feel it inside my skull. It is the most uncomfortable feeling. Ugh. Holistic individuals might briefly step away to regulate themselves, but for me, it can often require days of silence to decompress. And without decompression, it's possible for me to have what's called an autistic meltdown, a full-grown temper tantrum with a total loss of control. I can sense when a meltdown is coming, but I can't always predict or stop the trigger. So I can feel like, oh no, I'm about to have a meltdown, but I don't know what's going to actually cause it, and I can't control it, and I can't stop it. So the only thing I can do is step away from the triggers around me and try to decompress. But that often means days off at work, which is PTO that I can't afford, and it's just... When a meltdown happens, it's like I'm watching myself have this temper tantrum from inside, completely unable to control my actions, and it's incredibly embarrassing. There's nothing I can do about it. It just happens. And then it leads to a cycle where you get a job, I get a job, I manage for a week or two, then I have a meltdown due to overload, and then I get fired because meltdowns are weird and disruptive. Nobody wants the problem child. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's my entire job history. Given these conditions, how can autistic individuals work? Well, the short answer is it's incredibly difficult without support. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires employers with over 15 employees to provide reasonable accommodations for difficulties, including neurodevelopmental ones, unless it causes undue hardship. So this means that reasonable accommodations aren't just physical accommodations like ramps for wheelchairs and things like that. They also include modified schedules, reduced workloads, and assistive tools for people who need those resources. JAN, which I'll provide a link below to the list, provides a list of suggestions, including quiet workspaces, reset time, fidget toys, and noise-canceling headphones. And your employer is legally obligated to provide all of these things for you. If you require it, they can be made to provide for you specialized furniture, even. The pedals that keep your feet active so that you can focus on your work, they have to provide that by law. In an ideal world, I would work in a quiet environment that had minimal interruptions, accommodations so I could reset and decompress, and have full acceptance of my brusque communication style. Text-based communication would be the norm, which eliminates the need for taxing verbal and visual social interaction. I wouldn't have to do the social dance anymore, everybody would get along, and I would still get all of my work done. But we don't live in that world. Instead, my disability leads to misinterpretations of rudeness and difficulty getting along due to my inability to perform neurotypical social dances. Autism is a disability, not a character flaw. We adapt as best as we can to a world that's not designed for us. Alarmingly, disability protections are currently being undermined by the same people who are supposed to be protecting us. However, as long as the ADA stands, these protections allow me and others like me to be productive workers by providing necessary accommodations. They enable me to continue contributing despite others' perceptions of my communication style. I will utilize and cherish these rights to be the best worker I can be. So what about you? What do you think about all this? Are you autistic too? What kind of accommodations did you request? Leave a comment down below and let me know how you feel about all this. And if you leave a mean comment, please know that I will pray for you. I understand feeling frustrated that someone else is able to express themselves so freely, and I understand that feeling of being repressed. I don't blame you for being angry. If you leave a mean message, please know that I will pray for you and that I hope that you find self-acceptance and peace. If you learned something today, click like and subscribe to receive more of my content and hear all sorts of different topics. And you can also follow me on social media at RoboRobot on Blue Sky. That's it. All right, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.